All right, welcome to Naija Unfiltered, a SYMFONI podcast. And our guest on today's edition of the program is President of CLO Nigeria and, of course, a veteran of the journalism profession and member of the Guild of Editors, Igho Akeregha. He's our guest this morning on the show. Good to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Victor. How are you?
Fine. So much has happened between the last time you came here and now. Our politics seem to be drifting to what Honor and Nekwe describe as 1 week, one trouble. So quite a lot. Let's see how we can unpack some of them. Let's start with the Court of Appeal judgment annulling the state congresses and national convention of the African Democratic Congress. Help us to make sense out of this.
Well, again, we are back to where the drama started. The courts have become the battleground for political actors, for politicians, and for those who are supposed to be driving the growth of our democratic processes. Unfortunately so, but the courts also have the responsibility to create the necessary checks and balances, for our democratic stability. Now, a lot of people have speculated that might be the situation. And these were some of the reasons, some of the booby traps that were on the way that Peter Obi, who was, if you recall, he was in the ADC with Atiku Abubakar and all of them. Apparently, he foresaw some of these legal challenges and decided to go to the National Democratic Congress, NDC. Well, the ADC has gone to the Supreme Court. They have approached the Supreme Court for a possible redemption.
Let's look at, are you concerned that major challenges to President Tinubu might be eliminated before the election, and what would be the implications for our democracy?
There is a reason to be apprehensive that perhaps some of the developments might mean clearing the way for President Tinubu to have a field day, and people are watching very closely if that is the intention, if that is the game plan. Because whether we like it or not, politics is not a walk in the park. It's not a stroll. It is not a place where you get into and then begin to smell of roses. For President Tinubu, I just hope that his hands are clean in all of this, because if his hands are not clean, at the end of the day, you'll be building a congregation of aggrieved opposition, which can also become a problem if he does emerge, if he wins the election next year. It would have been better because he won by just 26% of the votes cast, with barely 8-point-something million votes out of the approximate registered voters across the country of over 100 million. So if you got 8 million votes, because I also I listen to some of the arguments of the ruling party saying that they already have 12 million votes of Buhari in their kitty. Before the election, Buhari was still alive then. If Buhari could not deliver the so-called phantom, ambiguous 12 million votes that he had in the 2023 general elections, and Tinubu ended up having 8-point-something million votes. So where are the 12 million votes that they are talking about? So for me, that is curious, and that is a bit nebulous to claim that there are some standing figures somewhere that is already secured. And then the APC then also came around to say, looking at their registered voters, that they have well over close to 20 million votes in their register. So if you add 20 million to about 12 million, you are talking about 32 million votes. So that is outside of the voting population. Well, when people want to also rig elections, they bandy figures ahead of time, so that when these figures are front-loaded, then we said it before, after all, we had this, we had that, we had that. But I just hope that is not what it is. The cost should not be made clear for the president to have, it's not a monolithic race for only one man to participate. It should be, now we have very credible candidates, strong candidates who are also running for the highest office. We have Peter Obi there, we have Atiku Abubakar, we have the SDP candidate, we have Donald Duke, Adewale, yes, of the Social Democratic Party. We have Donald Duke, former Cross River State Governor for the People's Redemption Party, PROP. And then we have President Bola Tinubu. If we have all of these people on the ballot.
Not forgetting Showore.
Yes, sorry. My good friend, Omoyele Showore of the AA. I think that's AA. So, and I'm sure.
AAC.
AAC, yes. That is his party, AAC. Showore too has really been running for the elections, and I don't know why Nigerians are not looking in his direction. 2027 elections might be a different ball game. The AAC, I'm not sure they have any crisis right now. I'm not aware of any. So the coast is clear for Showore to run. And for the NDC, I think they just have one legal hurdle, if I remember very well, to clear. And then Peter Obi will also have, a leeway to contest in the election. For the PROP, Donald Duke does not seem to have any problem.
You also have. Somebody is also challenging
somebody, me. Yeah. So that is why there is speculation that the ruling party, the hands of the ruling party may not be entirely free from what is happening to the opposition political party. But let me warn and caution that Nigerians are not happy. The impression should not be given, or there should not be any evidence in whatever manner, for Nigerians to believe that, the political process itself is being manipulated, in a particular direction, such that now guarantee the emergence of only President Bola Tinubu. I'm sure that can lead to some kind of cataclysmic outcome that will not be of benefit to anyone. Let us have a free and fair, transparent elections for all the candidates that have indicated interest. But that, again, that is not to say that when politicians flout their own rules, that the courts cannot intervene. That's why the courts are there. The courts are meant to interpret the Constitution, interpret the laws and bylaws and regulations that set up these political parties. By the way, they are all registered. When you register as a political party, it means you have agreed to abide by certain laws, by certain regulations, and of course, the provisions of the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, as amended. So if there are breaches of your own laws, the courts must step in. We cannot blame judges for doing their work. That is why they are there. That's why they are paid salaries. But as Nigerians also, we need to be vigilant, because vigilance is the price for eternal liberty. We need to be very vigilant and watch and monitor the process as it unfolds. We just have a few months to the election, less than 5 months or so to the elections. A lot of things are going to happen. The country belongs to all of us. Politicians do not own the country. They are less than 1% of the entire population. So we cannot allow 1% of the population, because they hold public office, to hold the rest of us hostage. We will resist it. Nigerians are ready to resist. They will organize and mobilize, to resist any, whether organic or organic, conspiracy, against the Nigerian people. The democratic process must be seen to be free, fair. It must be open. The door must be wide open for everybody to come in and participate. Every attempt by anybody to try and either use the judiciary, manipulate the process, or use INEC, to create a subterfuge or to ambush the system is not going to be allowed, because the reason why we are complaining about poverty, suffering, and all kinds of policies, some are so that is having a negative effect and impact on the people, is because of the bad leaders, some of the bad leaders that are in offices. I'm not saying that all the leaders in Nigeria are bad. For example, some states in Nigeria, if you look at the subnationals, let us even leave the federal government first. If you look at the subnationals, I can point to some states, that have shown the determination to deliver democracy dividends for Nigerians.
How do you respond to the successful rescue of the 46 Oyo school children and teachers after 56 days in captivity How do you respond?
I must correct you, there was no rescue anywhere. I do not share the view that there was any rescue. Yeah, they were released. I think sometimes even government use this term interchangeably, released, rescued. Now, whether it is rescued or released, as a journalist, if you look at what has happened, the manner the abductees surfaced, you will see logically that this was not a rescue operation. Yes, we have our security forces who moved into the forests, who supervised, the retrieval of the victims from the forest, as it were. But if you then also look at the optics and the images that followed the release of the 44, I think there are 44 in number, abductees. Now, when they were abducted, it was reported that school was in session. Because we must begin to think, we must think rationally and logically in this country. It's not about just selling information to people and they swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. And then when you hold alternative view, people say, oh, they criticize you that you are not grateful, you are not appreciative of government's effort. And I am very, very appreciative of the sacrifices of our men and women in uniform, the security forces. They are doing a lot. But the political class is making their work very, very difficult. Whether it's the DSS, the police, the army, the Navy, Air Force, or the armed forces itself, they are putting their lives on the line daily for the rest of us to sleep well. But when you also have a political elite that, are very conservative with the truth, they shun out half-truths, I have a concern. Now, if you say that people were abducted on the day that school in session, there will be a natural presumption that on the day that they were released or rescued, as the case may be, these pupils or the students will be in uniform. But we saw them in different colored clothes, civilian clothes, not in uniform. So at what point did they change it to those clothes? Or did the vehicles that brought them from the forest, did they already made some clothes, imagine the sizes, the ages of the children, made clothes for them. So as soon as they came out, maybe they took their baths, they then wore the new clothes that we saw them with. That is one poser for me that I've not, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, my former boss at the News Temple, I read the statement he issued and I saw a lot of gaps. And thereafter, all the statements coming from government, from the presidency, has failed to answer my curiosity. That is one. Now, part of what is coming out of government was that it was a rescue operation. 8 of those terrorists were killed, and that some were arrested. Now, if you look at a typical rescue operation, usually it is captured live. Now, if for security reasons we don't want to capture this live, Nigerians should also deserve to see those that have been arrested, those that caused us this pain, this agony, this anxiety for over 54 days. I have not seen the arrested terrorists. I have not also seen anybody of a terrorist that was killed in that operation. So these are the issues that I sought answers to, and I have not found any answer. So why is this curiosity persist? What then happens is that somebody somewhere is not telling us the whole truth. And that leads us to what the governor of Oyo State, the issues he raised. That is Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, calling on the United Nations to initiate an independent inquiry or investigation into the entire saga, the entire kidnap and the abduction of these individuals, who unfortunately have to go through this harrowing experience. Don't forget, Michael Oyedoku, a mathematics teacher, was beheaded painfully. Those are images you cannot look at. And then one of the teachers during the invasion in the schools who was escaping was shot dead. A lieutenant, a 28-year-old Lieutenant F.A. Isaac, was also killed in the forest in an attempt to, rescue the abductees. And I understand another soldier was killed. Maybe some policemen and some hunters and vigilantes also lost their lives. A government must take this very, very seriously. While we are celebrating, we must know who these individuals are. We must bring them to the public square and have them. So where are those arrested? Where are those who were killed? Where are their bodies? Which mortuary were they taken? We saw when the number one terrorist in the world, Osama bin Laden, when the United States Special Seal went after Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, in a place called Abbottabad. They filmed it live. The whole world watched the operation, the rescue operation. They watched it, how the helicopters landed in the compound, all the firefights that took place, and how Osama bin Laden was eventually killed. It was declassified, and everybody saw what happened. I have never seen, every time you read reports, you see the Air Force have bombed terrorists, killed 100, killed 200, killed 150. Our military invaded their camp and killed this and killed that. People were arrested. They are not being paraded. We don't see their faces. Why are we hiding their faces? If truly these people have been arrested, we want to see them. Nigerians are interested in seeing them. Apart from the one that the U.S. got involved in, they said it was the number 2 of ISWAP, who was killed in an operation in, I think, in Borno State, late last month. We saw his photograph displayed on paper, not his body anyway, when he was alive. We saw that. Nigerians want to begin to see clear evidence of government action, of actions taken by security forces to erase all doubt, to erase any suspicion, to erase doubt that, there are inadequacies and gaps in information that is being released to people. And so that led credence to what the Oyo State governor is saying. Because if there are these gaps and people are not seeing what they should see, then they are likely going to believe what the Oyo State, because the Oyo State governor also receives security reports. The incident happened in his backyard. That is Seyi Makinde's backyard. So he has a right to ask questions and raise issues. He said he declared to run for the presidency, By the next day, 9 a.m., this abduction took place. I'm not saying here that, anything has happened. It could just be mere coincidence, as it were. But when individuals that are highly placed, somebody in the position of a governor, raises an issue like that, it behoves on the federal government to provide adequate response, not this pushback. Oh, you are this, you are that. That's not the kind of pushback that we should be seeing. We should see very logical explanations, that will satisfy. It's not about satisfying Seyi Makinde. There are many Nigerians who are thinking like that governor. Like me, I just told you now this morning that I have not seen dead bodies. I have not seen those that they claim they arrested. So was there something that they did that they don't want to tell Nigerians? If the ransoms were paid, anything that happened, they should tell Nigerians.
All right.
That is the issue.
All right, let's move on. What's your opinion about this whole saga surrounding the allegations involving the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila? What's your reaction to it?
You see, between 2023 and now, we appear to be having a melodrama in the villa in Aso Rock. Every day, almost every week, it is one drama to the other. And these drama are very serious issues. They look like Nollywood to me. Now, the villa should not be a place where people act Nollywood. These are very serious allegations. Mr. Adewale Adeyemi, the man in the center of this allegation, who ran the presidential...
Adeyemi.
Adeyemi, yes, that's his name. Who ran the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council. It's for over a year, the man ran that office. He secured an office accommodation at the Federal Secretariat. He hired staff. wrote letters inviting foreigners, white people. They were holding meetings in his office. He made a budget proposal. Apparently, he went to the National Assembly to defend the budget. The deputy speaker of the House of Representatives took photographs with him in his office. He had a budget code of 1.3 billion naira that was being processed for approval. And don't forget, that budget was already signed by Mr. President, which means it is possible, we don't even know now whether funds have been released, before the Ministry of Foreign Affairs raised the query. If not for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as we speak here today, that man will still be in office. So the issues are, that is why I say that government activities must be transparent, it must not be opaque. There must be checks and balances. When people like us will raise issues like this, they say, oh, you are a perpetual critic. Yes. Criticism is a necessary ingredient for the survival of democracy, to strengthen our democratic institutions, to put government on their toes, and to create a fierce impression that you are being watched. Where do we go from here? The president has directed the Independent Corrupt Practices and other related offenses commission, that is ICPC, to probe or to investigate this Mr. Adeyemi. The question is, who is this gentleman? He has accused Femi Gbajabiamila, the chief of staff to the president, that he paid him 400 million naira. Now, he said through a proxy. Now, there is a report that that proxy has died in a fire incident in one hotel somewhere, a day or two before the lid was blown open. Now, how did he pay the money to that proxy? Because this investigation, one people, they make it look like it's a difficult thing. If truly Mr. Adeyemi paid 400 million naira to that gentleman who is dead, now the security forces, the investigative team must now get his account. Because he couldn't have carried 400 million naira cash and give it to somebody. Even if he took it cash, they need to check his withdrawals from his accounts. Whether there was within that period, he withdrew 400 million naira. Who was the money given to? The banks, if it is transferred, which account was it transferred to? Who are the owners of those accounts? They can also monitor the telephone communication of that dead man. Monitor the telephone communication of this Mr. Adeyemi over a period of time and know who he has been communicating with. That way we'll get to the truth. This matter cannot be swept under the carpet. Heads must rule. Heads, I say, must rule, because Nigeria is too big for this game. The country belongs to all of us. Politicians should not think that because you are elected, then you can lord it over the people. This is a wake-up call on all Nigerians. Wake up! The fact that you are not affected today does not mean you are immune tomorrow. It is time to take our destiny in our own hands. And the way to do that is to ensure that we have a plural, transparent, free democratic process where we can freely choose our leaders. Leaders that you know, that you can send there, whether as a governor, as a legislator, as a councillor, anybody. And then you must have the power. Once the person is not doing what he or she is supposed to do, Nigerians must have the courage, the ability, the capacity to mobilize, to organize, and remove that person from that position. Look how the South Africans organized to take back their country. People are blaming the South Africans. Yes, we blame them because we invested in their freedom, in their liberation from apartheid. But look at how they were able to mobilize across cities, Pretoria, Johannesburg, Gauteng, everywhere across South Africa, mobilized in thousands to take back their country from people they tag as illegal migrants. That is how a country, that is how citizens, build consciousness, to take control of their country. But here in Nigeria, once there's an issue of common interest to all of us, people will be preaching religion, preaching ethnicity. As long as we are divided as a people, so long are we going to remain in perpetual slavery and poverty.
What do you make of President Tinubu still allowing some of those fingered in the scandal to remain in office. What are your expectations about the outcome of this investigation?
Well, it's a delicate rope to walk as president. Because, okay, assuming Bajabiamila is also innocent, assuming the secretary to the federal government is innocent, assuming that these documents were actually forged by this gentleman, and then you force them to resign, ridicule them, even if you recall them after investigation, would they be happy to put in their best? So that's why I say it's a delicate rope to walk by Mr. President. I'm not an emotional person when it comes to taking certain critical decisions. At this point, the chief of staff and the secretary to government are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. But whether the ICPC will be able to conduct an impartial investigation is a different conversation. But I want to believe, because we have very weak institutions in this country, whether it's, yes, the EFCC is doing quite well lately. I do not know about the ICPC. The Department of State Services, fantastic. They are doing very well, very, very well.
But there are those who still carpet them for.
Yes, they carpet them. But overall, if you calculate their aggregate performance, honestly, against what DSS used to be, you will say that there is a remarkable improvement in what they are doing. At least they arrest people now, take them to court, charge them, pay people compensation if you are wrongly detained or arrested. I mean, that is complying with democratic practices. So for me, I think the president hurriedly suspending or removing his principal officers from office, of course, don't also forget to affect the performance of government duties. But if they are found guilty one way or the other, I think the president must not waste time, not only to remove them, but have them prosecuted for embarrassing the country.
But Adeyemi himself has said that, one, that his life is in danger, and two, that he does not believe he will have fair hearing of justice with ICPC, since ICPC reports to the government, and those he allegedly fingered are also working for the presidency. So how do we reconcile this?
Well, he's going to court. All he needs to, he can ask for protection. The state should protect Adeyemi, because people are also watching. People are watching. If anything happens to that gentleman, then it will be obvious. You understand? It will be obvious that there is hand of government in all of this, in everything that has happened. So by now, I expect the DSS, the police, to provide protection, take him to court, and when he appears in court, let him open the Pandora box. If he has evidence, he should come with his evidence, because he who alleges must prove. All right? At this point, I don't want to join the bandwagon by calling for the head of Bajabiamila or anybody. He has the opportunity. That's why we have the courts. Some judges are very courageous in this country, all right? If you bring that gentleman before a judge who is courageous, the judge, based on, on submissions and motions filed, whether by the prosecution and the defense counsel, the judge will be able to arrive at, a reasonable conclusion as to the level of involvement of any individual that is mentioned in this matter. So the good thing is that he is going to court. So it's not enough. Why was he hiding in the first place? Because he has been evasive. He has not...
hiding for his life. If the principal witness is dead, so he's hiding for his life.
Now, the question is, if the principal witness is dead, why didn't he raise the alarm that time? Why did he wait for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to blow the whistle about his... as soon as the principal witness is dead, that should have sounded an alarm bell in his head that if anything happens, this is the gentleman who I can call. Because he said he used him as an intermediary, to get his appointment later.
At that point, there was no basis, because the coast was still clear. Everybody was still eating on the same table. So there was no need to shout. It was only when things went wrong that he said, well, my key witness is gone.
Okay, fine. Now, if that is, let us assume that is the position, that is the situation. My own assumption here is that he could have called a press conference, because everybody must die.
He also did. He called a press conference.
Yes, and then provide the evidence. Because you may not have another chance. If I were him, as I'm calling the press conference, I am laying on the table all the evidence, all the documents, such that once you have done that, because when you are holding back, then it's either he's holding back, thinking that he will be given a soft landing. I'm not speaking for anybody. I don't even know the characters that are involved here. Me, I'm just playing the devil's, I'm just thinking, if I were in Bajabiamila, assuming he's just throwing his name up, because he said it's Bajabiamila that signed this, signed his appointment letters. Everybody knows that the chief of staff does not sign appointment letter. But what I also find curious, why would the National Assembly, the secretary, office of the secretary were dealing with him, they knew that somebody else signed his letter of appointment, then the federal secretariat and it has a management that is responsible to the federal government. Why is everybody saying that his letter of appointment is signed by a different person, an irregular signature, and then they are still dealing with him? That is why I suspect that there are deeper involvement of highly placed individuals. There's complicity at the highest level. But how do we lift the veil, to see the faces of these people? Because there are many cases like that. Let me tell you, my brother, there are many cases like that when Nigerians are being shortchanged on a daily basis. Unless we're able to unbundle this huge scam, this huge cabal who are running a big scam. Nigeria is a huge criminal enterprise where people, some persons in government, feed fat by doing nothing and just juggling figures, forging signatures and forging documents with the connivance of people that are highly placed and fleecing the patrimony of all of us. There are many people like that. And this is a time for soul searching. This is a time for sober reflection for government itself. That's if the government is serious, to look inwards and conduct an internal audit of what is happening within government institutions. Who is playing what role? Because we also have appraisal, that's appraisal performance, evaluation of key government functionaries. Who is doing what? What role are individuals playing? At what time were you employed to play this role? What is the level of your performance output? Questions have to be asked so that in the course of doing this personnel or resource audit, one might unveil a whole lot of things. There are processes in the system that does not add up and that is leading to leakages from the system. And these leakages is making Nigeria to hemorrhage financially and impacting everybody, impacting the quality of life that Nigerians are living. So this is an investigation that Nigerians are interested in, but my worry and fear is that, like very many investigations, it is going to be shrouded in secrecy, in opaqueness. The more you look, the less you see. And at the end of the day, they will say they are releasing a white paper and nobody will get to hear anything after. But if that happens, people like us will not keep quiet.
Let me play the devil's advocate. If you are the president and the commander-in-chief and you have your chief of staff having this allegation hanging on his head, will you still allow him to remain in office?
Well, I might suspend some key duties that he's handling, but I may not remove him completely from office. Like I said earlier, if he's innocent, what do we do? But for the sake of, because of the issues that Adeyemi has raised, that his life is in danger, I would think that at this point, the president can suspend Bajabiamila from office, suspend anybody that he mentions without removing them outrightly, put them on suspension. I think he has told the ICPC to conduct their investigation, I think within a month or so. And so once they turn in their report, the president evaluates the report that was turned in. If their suspension is not removable, then you can, if they are free, you recall them. But as it is, for these individuals to remain in office, against the backdrop of the fear that is being expressed by Mr. Adeyemi, because they can use the instrument of their offices, to cause harm. So, in the light of that, they may be stripped of the powers to, to access those official instruments that can cause harm to him. They also put them in some kind of official watch to know what they are doing and what they are not doing at any given time, while protecting the main soldiers Adeyemi.
That's for a serious government.
Yes, for a serious government. I doubt, because right now I don't see President Tinubu doing that. I don't see him doing that.
From one trouble to another, this is not the best of times for the chief for the chief of staff to the president, because there is another allegation that has surfaced, still involving him, and these allegations claim that he unlawfully diverted 54 billion in oil and gas royalties from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. What are your thoughts on this latest situation?
I just hope that Femi Gbajabiamila is not becoming the proverbial tortoise that is always mentioned in every story. Because if all kinds of allegations that comes up, his name is present in these allegations, then there must be something fishy about his personality. Don't forget, Bajabiamila was Speaker of the House of Representatives for about
4 years.
4 years, yes. And before he got appointed as Chief of Staff by the President. That's a very sensitive office he's holding. And as a former Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives, that was also a very sensitive office. Now, if every allegation, his name pops up as a major actor, that again presents some worry. I do not have the facts. I have not seen the report. I do not know who is making this allegation. But again, that was why I proposed earlier that it is time to suspend him from office and actually conduct a detailed investigation of his person, of the period he has held office as Chief of Staff to the President. Perhaps if that inquiry is made, if that investigation is conducted, it could unravel some things about him that will help the President to reach a conclusive decision. Now, we cannot have a controversial person holding such a sensitive office. He has to be very careful to clear himself, to remove himself from individuals that are controversial in nature, that will always rope him in. Except if he himself, his hands are not clean. But if he thinks his hands are clean, it is time for him to also come clean in public space. He has to come and respond to deny or accept this allegation, this fresh allegation of 54 billion naira. That is not a small amount of money. It is money that can feed the entire population for about 4 years. For everybody sitting there doing nothing, just eat 3 square meals and sit there in your house. For 4 years, Nigerians will be eating and celebrating with 54 billion naira. So like I said, it is a humongous sum of money, and the Chief of Staff must, at this point, clear himself continually of these allegations. It is one allegation too many, and the President also needs to do something about it.
But in the interim, let's leave a Chief of Staff and the presidency. Let's go to Nigeria and its image. Currently, Nigeria ranks 142 out of 182 countries on Transparency International 2025 Corruption Perception Index. Considering this, what does it mean for us as a country, and how will it likely affect Nigeria's image, economy, and foreign investments?
I looked at the 2025 report of the Corruption Perception Index. From 2024, between 2024 and 2026, Nigeria has only gained 2 points. We still rank 26%. If you are looking at the marginal score 0 to 100, so Nigeria is hovering, currently 26% if you read that report. Now, countries, it's so shameful. If you look at that report, you'll be ashamed to be in Nigeria. So we are now competing, within the corruption sphere with countries like Somalia, Venezuela, South Sudan, Yemen. Terrible countries. Those are the countries we are competing with in terms of corruption. And one of the best countries in terms of corruption in Africa, incidentally, they haven't mentioned in South Africa, Botswana, some of these countries. These are countries that are very friendly. If you look at Botswana, Namibia, country, that's how you have large population. Anywhere you find large population of white people, it means that the environment there is safe, governance structure is tolerable, and the environment generally is friendly. So Nigeria is hovering. We keep battling the issues of corruption. Now, any country that is riddled with corruption, you cannot divorce that from insecurity. Because once there is corruption, it means that the money that is meant for development is being stolen by a few individuals Who are these individuals stealing our common patrimony? That is a question for governments to answer. Because it's not me and you that are stealing the money. The money that's accruable from our vast oil and gas resources, from the huge mineral deposits across the country. Because nobody's even talking about the Federal Ministry of Mineral Resources. One of the biggest lithium factories in Africa is currently operating in Nasarawa State. Nobody's looking at it. Do you know what lithium is? Do you know billions of dollars that countries earn from the export of lithium? We have that in abundance in Nigeria. We have bauxite, we have iron ore, we have magnesium, we have zinc. Name it. We have everything in this country. God has blessed us. But yet, we have individuals who have sworn to steal more than they need. What do they need this money for? So, the Corruption Perception Index focuses on 180 countries. So out of these 180 countries, Nigeria is about 146. You look at that report. So we always hover between 144, 145, 146. 144, 145. No progress is made. So we take one step forward, 2 steps backward in the Global Corruption Perception Index. Now, curiously, you have the president flying around the world, encouraging people, pleading with foreigners to come and invest in Nigeria. Now, if you are an investor, will you take your money to... Because investors read these reports. When they read a report like this, would they be encouraged to bring their money here so that it will be stolen, it will be misappropriated? And then you now have a judicial system that is not completely reliable. Because when you come and invest in a country, when you bring your funds to a country, and there is a problem, where you approach is the courts. Now, if the courts are also compromised by the institutions of the state, it means you are not likely going to get justice. That will discourage you from investing in that kind of environment. So we have a lot of work to do. The government has a lot of work to do. Nigerians really, as we speak, we are helpless. Nigerians are not in government. They are not included in the governance structure, the governance system. Nigerians are not being carried along. It is when things go awry, government just issue a statement, casually informing the people, this is what has happened, this is what has happened, and they stop there. But with regards to the income that we earn as a country on a monthly basis, under the former administration of Olusegun Obasanjo, when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, we're having a monthly publication of income and expenditures. What goes to the states, everybody could see. What goes to the local government, with regards to FAC allocation, we could see. But since Obasanjo left power, I think former President Goodluck Jonathan also did that for a while. But that has been thrown into the dustbin now. Nigerians no longer matter. You don't deserve to know.
You can't even trace government spending.
You can't.
In the budget office, the thing has been suspended.
And then the budget is suffering below 30% performance. So where are all the money is going into? That is the question. And we are borrowing so much money, billions of dollars. The other day we were looking for $1.5 billion from the World Bank. What are we doing with these humongous sums of money? That is a big question. And that is... Now, let me make this point. Because I think that the ruling political elites are still thinking that it's going to be business as usual next year. Maybe it will, I don't know. Because some Nigerians still appear to be very gullible. Because if you look at the off-cycle elections, people were still collecting 3,000-5,000 naira to go and vote. We will not stop talking as the conscience of society. We will not stop talking. We will not stop conscientizing and educating the citizenry about their fundamental rights to governance. How you can elect the kind of people that will give you peace of mind. Because if you take money from politicians, take 3,000, 5,000 from them, and you put them in power, then you have lost the moral right to question them if they misbehave in office. So the point I'm making is that the elections next year are going to be dictated by the common issues affecting Nigerians now: insecurity, poverty, hunger, all right, fear, fuel, house rents, lack of access to quality health care, all the basic issues that other countries, serious countries, have taken for granted. That's why you have so many people running to the churches to go and pray for miracle, running to the mosque and align their heads and their brains to be brainwashed by religious leaders who, as we speak with what is happening in this country, what are the voices of these religious leaders who yesterday were crying from the rooftop that the Jonathan government was bad, it was clueless, it was this and that? Where are these religious leaders? They've all walked away with their tails tucked in. So shameless and shamefully, some of them are even shamefully defending the current order of things, where what is happening before all of us is visible to the blind and audible to the deaf.
It is said that people beget the kind of leaders they want. Do you think the opposition is actually doing enough beyond irregular statements on Twitter and social media? Do you think they are doing enough to hold government accountable?
Well, I see staccato of responses from the opposition. We don't have an organized opposition in Nigeria. At best, what you see is a struggle by elements in the opposition who I think have lost out from the sharing table, where the patrimony of Nigeria is being shared on the table. They are not at the table. So they quickly put together a political party. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but what I see basically is an incongruous, incoherent opposition that is unable to, to put together a coordinated approach to resolving our common national question. So overall, summarily, if you want to look at the performance of the opposition in Nigeria, it is not encouraging. It raises further anxiety about what happens next year. Because if this is the opposition that intends to take power in 2027, I am worried that President Bola Tinubu will just have a smooth and easy ride back to power next year. If you look at the main gladiators currently, I do not see, a concrete commitment, whether it is from Peter Obi, whether it's Atiku Abubakar, Donald Duke. I don't even see Donald Duke anywhere. He's not even in the media. He's not even in the consciousness of the people. The only individual that I even talk, Adewale speaks, out of the SDP. Yes, he is able to hold different press conferences. I see him on television stations, aggregating his views and telling Nigerians what he will do differently if he becomes president. And of course, providing alternative argument to the current order of things. Peter Obi is doing the same thing. For the first time, Atiku Abubakar is also speaking. In the previous election, once he loses, Atiku Abubakar goes to Dubai to go and relax. So for the very, very first time, he's out, he's talking. But it is not enough to talk. For a serious opposition that wants to, remove the incurrent president next year, they needed to do better by organizing themselves and supporting one of them. That was what Tinubu did with Buhari. Tinubu was able to mobilize Southwest support, mobilize goodwill across the country in support of Buhari in 2014. And then they were able to, form the APC, element of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, the CPC, the the Alliance for Democracy, which was ACN at the time, and all of that. They all came together and bettered the APC. And they were able to rout former President Jonathan. Because it was obvious as the results were coming in. And I give kudos to former President Jonathan this morning. Because unlike what we are seeing now, President Jonathan didn't stampede the opposition. When they were marching, not just marching everywhere, he allowed them. Even when people were telling them, why are you giving the opposition so much space, to criticize your government? And even then, I remember the opposition threatened to set up a parallel government against Jonathan. Jonathan didn't arrest anybody, didn't question anybody. Nobody was stampeded. Religious leaders, people like Bakare of Latter Rain Church and the Redeemed Man, Pastor Enoch Adeboye and all that, they were all involved. They got musicians beating drums all over the country that Jonathan must go. And when the results were being announced, Jonathan picked up his phone and congratulated Buhari. And today, history is favorably recording him as one of the leaders that have bettered modern democracy in Nigeria. But is Tinubu doing the same thing? All fingers are pointing at Tinubu that is stampeding the opposition. He's closing the democratic space. They're accusing him of manipulating the judiciary to remove strong opposition leaders, to water down, the mobilization and organization within opposing political parties. I am not saying he's doing that because it's difficult to find the evidence. But if you look at the indices, if you look at the political environment, you cannot but agree that there's something uncanny, something untoward that is going on. Something afflicting our democratic space. So who is behind this affliction? Fingers, eyes, tail, wagging, are pointing at the ruling party, at President Bola Tinubu.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having you around. Thanks.